Good evening and thank you to the Monday, January 9th meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission. We will start with a roll call. Chair Lisa Hanson, present. Vice Chair Jacob Miller,
Present.
Alder Jim Hutchinson,
Present.
Commissioner Sidney Bremer,
Present.
Commissioner Darius Daniels,
Present.
Commissioner Ken Ravinsky,
Present.
and Commissioner Michael Paradic.
Present.
All right, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Approval for the January 9th, 2023 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Vice Chair Miller. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to the approval of minutes. Approval of the minutes from the November 28th, 2022 meeting of the Green Bay Plan Commission.
So move. Second.
Motion by Alder Hutchinson, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then moving on to regular business. Item number 1, consideration with possible action on request to vacate unimproved portions of roadways known as Verona Lane and an unnamed street east of Crestwood Drive and south of West Mason Street, submitted by Department of Public Works on behalf of the Oneida Nation property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So, this is sort of a map of the west side of the city, part of the west side of the city. You'll see West Mason Street up here on the north, the map, West Mason Street frontage road right below it. You have Crestwood Drive here on the left side of the map, Trojan Way here on the right, and then Packer Land just a little bit further over. So what I'm kind of showing you in here is this is an aerial photo of the city. The blue lines are property lines, the green lines are street right-of-way lines. And the dashed lines are lines that have been placed on the city's official map for future roadway purposes. So they're not dedicated to the public, but they are reserved for roadways. Now, this area currently is all owned. Well, before I get to that, you'll see the two little yellow dashes. Those are the unnamed street on the north or on the south, and Verona on the north, I believe. Those have been dedicated to the public as part of some type of land division that happened over the last 20-30 years. But they have not been improved. So those two little pieces are dedicated. You can kind of see like this area right here in green, which is Brokea Way, I believe. That is a dedicated street. So this is sort of before they dedicate them as part of a subdivision typically. And that's what we have here on these two little stub pieces. I'll go up a little bit to the next slide here. Now this is just a colored map. So as all of you know, about a fifth of the city is part of the Oneida Nation. Oneida Nation is about a fifth of the city. So this area is predominantly owned by either the nation itself or it's in trust in the nation's interests. So everything you see here in yellow is in trust, and then the parcels you see in blue are outright owned by the Oneida Nation. They're not in trust, but they're owned by the nation. So a lot of these dedicated roadways, not dedicated roadways, but planned roadways fall in the Oneida Nation themselves. So Oneida is currently going to be coming through and looking at doing some more development within this area. The one thing I will point out here, if you notice, so Chief Hill Drive, you can see as an improved road, as well as all these roads down in this area. But you'll notice there's no right-of-way lines. These are all right-of-ways because it is in trust. There is a different platting mechanism that the Oneida Nation uses than the city or the county or any municipality or any private property owner. So even though these roads are installed and typically maintained by the city through intergovernmental agreement, they are not actually platted right-of-ways. So that being said, when Oneida comes through to do more development into this area, they do not need platted roads. So they're requesting that these two actual dedicated pieces of roadway which are very small, unusable, be vacated. And in that way, they will come back when they do development with a potential new roadway pattern, and they can lay out their lots and do their development. But while these rights of way, dedicated rights of way are in here, they cannot go over the top of it. Now the northern right of way piece, there is utilities in that section. So even if vacated, the city will retain easements in there, their storm sewer, that they would keep it as an easement. So I'll get up a little bit closer. This is a survey, the unnamed street on the north. You can see the little stub of Rona on the south. And then these are just a little bit closer shots of them. But with that, we talked to Public Works. Actually, they are the requesters on behalf of Oneida Nation to vacate those streets. There is no use for them for us as a city. So we are recommending approval of the request contingent upon the regular waiting period in between the public hearings. And one condition that we retain easement rights for the existing storm and sanitary sewers in the unnamed street area.
Thank you, David.
Unless anybody has any questions, since these roadways are unimproved, unused, and unneeded by the city, I move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Bremer, a second by Commissioner Rubinski. Is there any more discussion amongst the commission? Or questions? I'm gonna guess that's not for me.
No.
All right, then we'll go ahead with the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward to the next city council meeting that is.
I don't remember what the next.
What's what is today, the 9th?
The 17th, I believe it is.
That'll move on to city council for
I think you did.
January 17th. All right. Okay, and then moving on to item number 2, which is hearings. This public hearing has been properly posted and public notification has been published in the Press Times. The Plan Commission is interested in hearing public comments on the subject agenda items. We invite your comments and ask that after your name has been called, you state your address, whether you represent a group or association, whether you favor, oppose, or only providing information in this matter, and your comments or concerns. We also ask that you confine your testimony to facts related to the proposal at hand and avoid repetitive testimony. Questions may be asked during the public hearing, but will not be answered until the upcoming of actionable item. You must be recognized by the Plan Commission in order to speak, and please address your comments to the chair. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. To speak during this public hearing, if you're in person, you can stand up. If you're calling in virtually, you may unmute yourself at the bottom of the screen. Use the raise hand function on Zoom. Physically raise your hand if you are using the video feature, or press *6 to unmute yourself if you are calling in. And we will now open the public hearing on item number 2. Public hearing on request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for properties located at 3251, 3263, 3279 Nicolay Drive, tax parcels 22-64, 22-65, and 22-66-1 from a mixture of low density residential uses, commercial uses, and park uses to solely park uses, submitted by Matt Creasy, Brown County Parks Director, on behalf of Brown County property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Dave, next slide, please. Just a brief overview. Properties are located in the 3400 block of Nicolay Drive. This is between Church and Van Lannen. You'll see this is the aerial view from 2020. In the meantime, these buildings have been removed. But streets, and this is in conjunction with a rezone that will be next public hearing to go ahead and change designation to fully into park public uses.
Thank you so much. All right, and now with this public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who wants to speak in favor, in opposition, or just adding their comments. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 3. Consideration with possible action on request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for properties located at 3251, 3263, 3279 Nicolay Drive, tax parcels 22-64, 22-65, and 22-66-1 from a mixture of low-density residential uses, commercial uses, and park uses to solely park uses, submitted by Matt Creasy, Brown County Parks Director, on behalf of Brown County property owner.
That's good. So to give a larger overview of both this and the rezone here, the county park department, the county itself purchased this land a few years back and is working with neighbors here in the past few years to come up with a plan to redevelop this old commercial facility along with the former single family homes that buffer in the site into a boat launch public park. The county is working with neighbors here at a handful of different public meetings over the course of the past year to get to where they're at right now. So right now, next slide. With the future land use, you can see what's been the hodgepodge here over the course of the years. Most of the site is parks. Even though this was the old Eagles Nest, you can see that with the commercial red in there, and then buffer to the north and south would be the low density residential. Next. This is the rezoning here in the future, but just to note that this was C1 uses for the two northern ones properties and R1 to the south. So next slide. This is what the area looks like right now. This is a street view back in November of 2022. You can see the improvements were taken down here over the course of time as the county is looking to prepare to make improvements here into this coming year. Next slide, please. With that in mind, while the commission is not approving the site plan per se, they have provided a conceptual site plan that in general would go ahead and meet the requirements here for land uses here in the future. So the comprehensive plan, to go ahead and clean this up, trying to go ahead and make the entire 3 parcels into one singular land use, which will allow for the facilitation of the rezone, then to also have one singular land use. When it comes to the comp plan amendment, you'll note in your staff report, staff didn't feel there were any issues here as far as hurting public amenities. In fact, it's enhancing them with the additional park space here for users. So next, with this in mind, staff's recommending approval to change designation from the mixture of low density residential, commercial, and parks to parks.
Thank you so much, John. And Commissioner Bremer, I guess you living in that general area, have you been to these meetings at all? I'm just curious if I know.
No, I haven't. Thank you for asking. In fact, I was not aware of the meeting, so that was of great interest to me.
Yeah, I know I had seen this plan somewhere earlier and I'm personally excited by it, but that Eagles Nest was vacant for so long. So,
The plan has been taken in front of the county board.
all right. Okay.
There was some media attention to it back in September,
Okay.
with some meetings. There was meetings at both Hampton Park, Rush Expo, and then finally at the site itself back in September.
Oh, excellent. Thank you.
And as I understood, importantly, those meetings were also available on Zoom for people who lived elsewhere.
That is correct. We did have one Zoom invite. Yep.
Thank you.
The floor is not open, so actually only the commission is able to speak at this time. I'm sorry. Is there any discussion amongst the commission or do we have any questions for? Yeah.
Got a question. Just a general question. Is there a stream on the north side of this site?
Yeah, I'll tweet up to the council plan. There is a waterway that does run up.
This area, back up that way. Okay, is that just gonna be maintained or is there any development of that because flooding is an issue along this roadway, I know, is there gonna be any work with regard to that?
I would defer to staff who is here from Brown County to go ahead and.
Is it?
If I can answer too. So right now, this is kind of a comprehensive plan amendment. any type of development that would happen even after the zoning changes would all have to meet our floodplain
Okay.
and our stormwater.
So this is
code.
just addressing the zoning.
This is
And
the
Right.
comprehensive plan.
This is
We are on
not-
the comp plan right now.
correct, and even the zoning action, which
Zone
is
is
next, this plan
Oh, okay,
is, they would still have to meet code, even if this was the plan that they showed in front of you right now.
okay.
You know, once the zoning changes.
Right, they've put forth the effort to go ahead and bring forward a pretty substantial concept plan here throughout the
Okay.
past months, but we're not actually taking an action on the concept plan itself.
Another matter of curiosity, if I might. I'm curious about the archaeological artifacts that have been found and whether they've been reported to the Wisconsin Historical Society and their Division of Archaeology, and whether they've been dated.
We do not have that answer.
The petitioner may have that said, however, yeah, they could probably answer it when you get to that. That wouldn't be something we really asked them during a comp plan amendment, or even a zone change for that matter. But we would ask them when the site plan comes through.
I understand that, but actually it is related to the intention to identify the parks, because that would be of public interest and might well be a park feature.
So yeah, you may want to open the floor, then the county will probably speak on that. If you so choose.
So moved.
Second,
Motion by Commissioner Bremer, second by Alder Hutchinson to open the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, you state your name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, Matt Creasy, Brown County Parks Director. Address would be 2024 Lakeview Drive, Swamico, Wisconsin, 54173. So that is a valid question on the archaeological finds that we found on site. And as one would predict, located along Lake Michigan, aka Green Bay, it is a Native American grounds for hunting, fishing, etc. And we did have a state licensed archaeologist, Kevin, with the Neville Public Museum out on site in 2021. And he found pottery, he found fire cracked rocks, some chert flakes, some thermal shads, and some other pottery type of items in there. They were unable to date, but they are currently located at the Neville Public Museum and in their storage for these. So that area of talking off cue here, but that area is going to be preserved as parkland undisturbed in the future.
Thank you
I
so much.
appreciate your attention to that. I would also urge you to consider whether or not there might be some signage that would show the materials that have been found there, and might also include a land acknowledgement, which would certainly be appropriate along this much used area for Indigenous peoples.
Very good point. We will take that into consideration.
Thank you. That's all I ask.
Any further discussion or questions? I guess we can do close.
Motion to close the floor.
second,
Motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Alder Hutchinson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Move to. Second.
Okay, motion by Vice Chair Miller, second by Commissioner Ravinsky. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll go ahead with the voice vote. All those in favor?
aye,
Aye.
Any opposed? Approved, and we'll move on then to City Council for January 17th. Next item number 4, public hearing on request to rezone properties located at 3251, 3263, 3279 Nicolay Drive from general commercial and low density residential to public institutional, submitted by Brown County Parks Department on behalf of Brown County property owners.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is a reason we've gone for this, so move on to the public hearing.
Okay, excellent. Is there anyone looking to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 5, consideration with possible action on request to rezone properties located at 3251, 3263, 3279 Nicolay Drive from general commercial and low density residential to public institutional, submitted by Brown County Parks Department on behalf of Brown County property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this rezone will allow the to happen to make the full property itself in compliance. Now with C1 and R1 parks are allowed, but this will just truly make the property whole in the future. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any discussion or questions?
Sid has a question.
Oh, well, go ahead, Commissioner Bremer.
Thank you. I wasn't sure whether this was more appropriately asked now or with the previous question. But I'm wondering, have there been any attempts made to figure out how to calm the traffic along here? I know that's a concern of neighbors, which you would expect. This is an incredible plan for the use of the entire city and area. But for the people who live nearby, it is going to increase traffic along a roadway that used to be used for a lot of walking, and is now almost unusable for that purpose.
Right, so when we're looking at what this property has meant over the course of time, keep in mind that back in the 80s, 90s, up until 2011, it was a commercial site that had traffic to it most days of the year. So now that's become a boat launch, there will be more traffic impact than what has happened here over the past 11 years at the site. But it would be restoring back to what has happened and bringing activity back to the bay. So with that in mind, and what looks to be 2 drive entrances to the property itself as far as in and out traffic. Mind you, we're not on that right now, that this is a rezone, site plan will go ahead and address that. But staff felt it was appropriate for the boat launch to be there with the history of the site.
The area is, of course, much more densely populated than it was when the Eagle's Nest was a commercial feature of it.
I make a motion to approve.
Second.
So motion by Commissioner Ravinsky and a second by Vice Chair Miller. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead with the voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then that will move forward then to City Council for January 17th. Next item is public hearing on request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for a portion of properties located in the 600 block of Adams Street from Park to downtown, submitted by Department of Community and Economic Development petitioner and Investment LLC and Brogan Family Trust LLC property owners.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The property, the public hearing is for is located on the southwest corner of South Adams Street and East Mason Street, just north of Cass on the Fox River itself. So you can see it on the screen. It is 3 parcels currently. One owned by the Miller Investment Company and former Dean Miller. Another along the waterway owned by the city of Green Bay, and the stretch along Adams Street, which is about 50 feet wide, owned by the Green Bay Redevelopment Authority. And just some background, this is the previous location of the Fox River Trail. It cut back from the riverfront down to the roadside, as the city doesn't own property along the riverbank.
Excellent, thank you so much. All right, with the public hearing, we are looking to hear from anyone in favor, in opposition, or to provide comments only. Is there anyone wishing to speak? You can state your name and address for the record.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Attorney Dave DeWick. I'm an attorney for Miller Land Investments LLC, and Marlene Miller also is attending virtually. She's one of the members of Miller Land Investments LLC. And my client simply asked me to attend to advise the commission that we are in favor of all action items related to this property that are being discussed tonight. Simple as that.
All right,
And I'm available for questions.
Excellent.
My name's Thomas Saharsky. I represent, I don't know, my family interest. Been in this town since 1919 and Harbor Commission and whatnot. The property itself is wonderful. I'm glad they're redeveloping it. We get dust all the time coming into Cass Street and on my other tenants complaining that it's not improved. I can tell you downtown there, it probably needs a light at night for people who are using the river trail for safety and security. The additional trees on the side of the water department are gonna provide areas for people to hide or whatnot in winter without lighting. So I would appreciate it if the council took into consideration the total improvement around the water department, this parcel, and the river trail when they're doing things. I know it seems like we're doing that by rezoning it. But I would like to see a more comprehensive plan in some way to be able to gestate whatever project's going to be there forward. We've sat on the property for a number of years. I've watched the trail develop over time. That seemed like it was a sustainable plan for the long term. And the private property use that's going to be, or that's been proposed there, is now sat vacant for a long period of time. And it looks awful for the rest of our community. I would appreciate that something's done and that we work to gestate whatever needs to be done forward, but keep in mind the consistent pattern we have of the river trail and the other improvements along the way.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one has come forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 7. Consideration with possible action on request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for a portion of properties located in the 600 block of Adams Street from Park to Downtown, submitted by the Department of Community and Economic Development petitioner and Miller Land Investments LLC and Brogan Family Trust LLC property owners.
And actually, the Brogan Family does not need to be on there.
Oh, yeah, I'm just.
I know. Okay, so, again, this is a comprehensive plan amendment. It'll be followed up with the next item, which would be the zone change, very similar to the Nicolay Drive, which you had just seen. So again, this is made up of 3 parcels on the southwest corner of Mason and Adams. If you've been out there, so you'll see the parcels actually run into the river themselves, even though the bank is not quite out that far. And you'll see Cass Street, if it were to be extended, runs right to the river as well. So these are the properties itself. It's a little over 3 acres, 3.9 acres, actually almost 4 acres in size. And 3 ownerships, 3 lots. Kind of zoom down. This is an aerial photo of its current condition. So to the north is what was referred to as a central business district. There's some commercial offices, some retail station, a redevelopment site, and then the elevated Mason Street. To the south, directly along the riverbank, is basically open space. As you can see, there's not a lot of room, but the Fox River Trail also runs along the South Adams Street right of way. To the east, directly across, is the water department, public institutional use, the water utility. And then beyond that is a mix of singles, 2 families, primarily singles, but low density housing. So this is I'm sure you've all seen the site itself. This is a little dated one. But this is a view from Mason Street, looking down Adams Street. So you can see in here, the trail was actually on the other side of the road at this time. It was relocated here, and this is the former warehousing that used to be on the site. Again, this is looking at southwest from the corner, and so you can see this is the property in question itself. This shows the trail's location at that time, 2017. This is looking directly down, or looking up Adams Street, looking north, so you can see Mason Street. This was the former warehouse property and water department. This view is looking southeast, water department is here. This is directly south, you can see that low density housing, and you can see the Cass Street intersection here. As far as the comprehensive plan goes, future land use plan shows this area for full parks purposes. And what I'll explain is that it's called out specifically in the comp plan as special park area 5. When you get into the comp plan and start reading special park area 5 or 4 or 3 or 2, they get into a lot more detail. So what this park area is actually for the entire length of the river frontage down to Fort Lear Pier in the comprehensive plan. And when that was taken into account, as you can see in the comp plan, they take generalization. So you're doing a comp plan, land use plan for the entire city. So they showed this area for all parkway, but they qualified it by saying it should have a linear walking trail, pedestrian trail, multi-use. So when you see the requested comp plan change, you'll see that that intent is still there. The zoning for the property is currently conservancy on where the trail was sitting. Back not that many years ago, the city used a conservancy zoning whenever there were trail uses or any type of uses. That has shifted over. Public institutional zoning was adopted and then shifted over to that. But you'll see that's conservancy. The area that on the river and Mason is on public institutional, and the remainder of the site is currently zoned light industrial. As you can see, that light industrial zoning continues down south. So what's being proposed here first on the left-hand side here, you can see a preliminary CSM or certified survey map. This would combine all 3 parcels and then resplit them, basically running about a little over 50 feet from the high water mark of the river. So that high water mark fluctuates a little bit with the height of the river, but the riprap and such holds that. So they're calling that all lot 1. That is being recommended in the comp plan change to be parks or public land use. And then the remainder of the site, which would be lot 1, which is a little over 2 acres. So this is about 1.2 acres. And you'll see what's in purple is designated to be a downtown land use. So as the comp plan recommend a linear park area, the frontage along the riverfront and riverbank accomplishes that. As we get comp plans or land use requests, that's when we dig into these areas a little further. The city had been talking with Dean Miller, who unfortunately passed away recently, for the last couple of years, 2 or 3 years, and negotiating ways to get the Riverwalk along the riverfront and develop this property after the warehouses went away. So if you've been out there recently and you saw, you probably haven't seen on the pictures because they're dated. The Riverwalk was actually relocated along the riverbank right now, and it was removed from the Adams Street right of way. Ideally, the city likes to keep Riverwalks on the river. So that has taken place. There's a development agreement with the Millers, basically swapping land and paying for the construction of the Riverwalk, which has already been constructed. So this would be the recommended future land use, public along the riverfront and downtown near Adams Street. Staff feels this is a logical extension of the central business district to the north. It is directly across the street from the water department, which is not necessarily a commercial type use, but a commercial type use in office and public use. And we've stopped that request down at Cass Street, so it doesn't go any further to the south. If you look, I can get further out here. If you look as you go to the south down Cass, this is something we'll have to look at eventually, or down Adams, something we'll have to look at eventually. But current is buildable. The water is very high. There's a setback from the waterway. Redevelopment Authority owns plots along. So we're not addressing that right now. We're really just addressing this 600 block. So yeah, with that, staff is recommending approval of the request to amend the city's comprehensive plan for the portion of the property from parks to downtown.
All right, thank you, David. So now just out of curiosity, can you remind me again when we completed that comp plan?
2020, comp plan 2003,
Okay.
so it's old.
Right, because the coal piles, it says are park, so.
Yep.
I mean. Okay, and with that site, because it's been now a couple of years now, was there remediation that had to be done to the site?
Well,
Or was it just, I mean, the toxin as far as development that is taking this kind of time and?
so what had kind of happened is the structures were removed, the site was graded, the trail was put in, development agreement took place between the city and the landowner to do the land swap and the payment for the trail. Any type of environmental actions that would happen if and when development were to occur.
Oh, okay, so that hasn't been done yet, okay.
No, there's been testing, but nothing extensive, like you'd be digging out basements and doing more intense environmental research.
Okay, so that answers that question.
Dave, maybe you can refresh my memory. When we had the last proposal, that was probably what, 3 years ago? The actual, where there was an apartment being proposed on there. Was that done with the PUD? I'm just wondering if you didn't clean it up with the comp plan and zoning at that time.
Yeah, well, I believe that came through as if I remember correctly, as an informational item. But that was going
Okay.
through the redevelopment authority to do the development agreement, and so they wanted to run it through the other bodies of the city to be aware of what was going through the redevelopment authority. Again, redevelopment authority isn't technically part of the city. But they kind of are quasi. So that was just basically to run through the plan commission and council before they entered those talks.
Okay.
But at that time, the landowner did have a concept design for a multifamily and a mixed use building with a bunch of riverfront amenities and outdoor spaces.
Yeah.
From the city standpoint, we would love to still see a project like that come forward, but this time, like, that's not on the table.
Was there any more discussion amongst the commissioner, questions for staff? I think someone might want to speak, so we might need to open up.
Motion to open the floor.
Second.
Motion to open the floor, second by Commissioner Alder Hutchinson. All those in favor?
Yes,
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then if you can just come forward and state your name and address for the record again.
I just had a couple more questions. Thomas Sarsky, I own 312, 314 Cass Street. I'm very familiar with the waterfront area. My first one would be the concern underneath the bridge in a darkened area like that. If a building project were to go up, that we would require some type of lighting for safety and security purposes. I would think for anybody using the trail at night, especially coming around the corner where that street would be, those would be my concerns. The other concern is, most of the lots down there are sand. So I don't know if they've done a perk test on the lot or anything to even determine the feasibility of being able to engineer and put something there would be my next question. And so with these questions still out in the lurch, we're still gonna, what appears to be a decade out from even getting started on this plan. And so my question would be whether or not we would be able to incentivize a project there that might be more beneficial to our city benefit in some way, shape, or form to look at doing something like that as well. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on this item?
We'll close the floor.
Second.
And a motion by Vice Chair Miller, a second by Commissioner Daniels. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right.
If I could ask the question on the part, when we're discussing the different options for that piece of land, especially because it's in such a prime location, was there any other options or discussion in the department for maintaining it as park space?
Sure, yeah, when we analyzed this area as a comp plan, actually, when we started talking with Mr. Miller, all kinds of different options were looked at for that property. Parks Department at that time felt that the linear approach to the continuation of the Fox River Trail was most important. As you go north, not too far, there is extensive Riverwalk and park space. And you go to the east, there's also park space. So in the Parks Department's opinion, they did not really need a larger park area at this location. But they wanted to retain that 50-foot for active Riverwalk purposes. Installation of art, installation of trail. So it was discussed. We also talked about other type of land uses there. That may or may not be appropriate. We tend to brainstorm a lot, usually in this room that we're sitting in right now. But because of the sort of logical extension of the downtown north of East Mason, that was really the land use that was felt to be most appropriate. When we get to the zone change request, I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Motion to approve?
Second.
A motion by Commissioner Craddock, a second by Commissioner Ravinsky. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead with the voice vote. All those in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
any opposed? All right, and then that will move forward to City Council for January 17th. Moving on to item number 8, public hearing on request to rezone the 600 block of South Adams Street from light industrial and public institutional submitted by the Department of Community and Economic Development petitioner and Miller Land Investments LLC property owners.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't know how much you need me to explain with this one. This would be the follow-up rezoning to the comp plan amendment.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing?
Thomas Sarsky again, same question regarding, a different question regarding the property. Regarding the feasibility study of things that can be done there, regarding perk test or to determine the feasibility of putting some of the buildings down there. Have there been other plans? And if they have been, are they now under consider again? The property is either, the project is evolving, to say the least.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 9. Consideration with possible action on the request to rezone the 600 block of South Adams Street from light industrial and public institutional to downtown and public institutional, submitted by Department of Community and Economic Development petitioner and Miller Land Investments LLC property owners.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. So I'm just showing on the screen right now the existing zoning of the site. So again, the conservancy along the street, a small portion of public, about 1 acre public, the remaining 2 acres and change industrial zoning. Again, what's being requested is the public institutional along the riverfront where the trail would be, and the downtown 1 zoning, which is a little bit different than the downtown 2, which you find on the east side of town. It has a height restriction of about 45 feet in that zoning. To give an example, the single family zoning district in the city allows 35 feet. So it's a lower, it's not quite as dense, but it allows quite a few mixed uses in there. So it would allow commercial, a mixed use commercial with residential, or just strictly residential. Again, this is a little over 2 acres. So not a giant piece of property. About 2.24 acres. But staff felt that the D1 zoning, because it's sort of a natural transition as you go to the south, rather than the standard D2, which is a sort of does not have any height limits, allows much more density, would be more appropriate. I guess to speak during the public hearing, we had a couple comments, and I'll just kind of talk about those. As far as lighting concerns go, I mean, anything that's under the bridge is public right of way and DOT land. The landowner would not be required or responsible to light anything in the city property. Any development that were to happen on that site itself, if it's on the river walk, that city council and a parks department determination how they choose to light that On the private property, they would be required to have some lighting depending on what the project is. So you have to have certain light levels in entrances of buildings or in parking lots. And you're limited to that as well for spillover. As far as soil quality and that, the soil quality along the riverfront is suitable for and trail. Any development that would happen on the site, on the remainder of the site, the deep site, would require that to all be analyzed as part of their site plan and building permits. Again, there is not, somebody out there with a shovel ready to dig. It's still very much early in that stage. So all those processes would have to go through. If it's found that it's too sandy, that it can't be developed. There's ways to deal with that. We have a lot of riverfront property. They do piers, sometimes they excavate and add. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know all the other answers, but I kind of wanted to answer that question. And then also, have there been other projects looked at? I've worked here for about 5 years. The only one that I've really seen has been Mr. Miller's project. But I did work here about 20 years ago, 15 years ago. And there were probably 5 or 6 projects that were floating around in the 5 or 6 years I was working here at that time. But again, it's a riverfront property. It's close to a pretty major arterial street. And so, yeah, it's a property that has been underutilized and is kind of interesting. I think people like to look at it. And I did want to make a point as well that one of the neighbors across the street lives at 705 South Adams, had contacted me. She can't be here tonight, but she'd like me to read her statement, and I will read past it. It's a little long, but her name is Mary Jackals. She owns a single family residence at 705 South Adams. Been in her family for 40 years plus. She appreciates the city concern about the existing zoning of light industrial. As I too am concerned, a perfect world where my personal agenda would be administered, the entire parcel would be zoned public institutional and utilized as a park. With parking, much like Voyager Park in De Pere, offering enjoyment of a more peaceful green river's edge, occasional entertainment, family activities without the intrusion of restaurants, condos, apartments, or offices. We don't live in a perfect world. But the city of Green Bay seems to lose projects and events to outlying communities. I was reminded that South Adams Street is considered a thoroughfare to downtown, but it is by no means a major artery through the city, nor was it designated as such. In the 70s, it was built to accommodate traffic to the Port Plaza Mall. Since the opening of the Fox River Trail, the southern portion of Adams through the Astor neighborhood is narrow, congested, and dangerous when the trail is busy and parking is on the west side of the street. Safety for trail users, loading and unloading bikes, kids, pets, and occasional goose crossings, as well as traffic coming to a crawl or stopping, are all issues that she has witnessed often. Additionally, municipal code violations of vehicular trespass occur regularly, as some trail users use private driveway aprons on the east side of the street as turnarounds, convenient turnarounds, putting extra cars backing out onto oncoming traffic, creating more risk as a homeowner. It is distracting having cars pull into your driveway multiple times throughout the day. It's additional wear and tear on my driveway as well, driveway apron. So you might argue that South Adams is a transit route designed for easy downtown access and business development, but through the residential neighborhood, there are real issues with traffic and safety at various times of the day. Adding high density populations, unlike a park, not only affect the residents and trail users on South Adams, but that traffic needs to move in and out of the downtown via Cass and Porlier streets. I understand Green Bay's waterfront is a huge asset as high tax income generating property, where solicitation of development is the goal rather than a public green space. My concerns for this parcel are how the city will choose to utilize the space with regard to the adjacent low density residential and historical Astor neighborhood. In order to coexist in a peaceful and respectful manner with the neighborhood community, I ask the council to please consider the following thoughts: building height limitations, low lighting restrictions, consideration of traffic congestion, and all things related to traffic, including noise, pollution, and emission, speed, and parking. issues with excess population density, i.e. police calls, vandalism, nuisance, long-term property maintenance agreements to be fully enforced by the city. In conclusion, I am a realist and know my personal agenda will not be administered, but I have concerns for the neighborhood that I hope you will contemplate when making the decision for rezoning. Downtown zoning 1 and 2 are designed specifically for downtown core on both sides of the Fox River, the central business district, Broadway, and Old Main, and provides a full range of high-intensity uses. I ask that you consider rezoning the property in question to office residential, transitional mixed-use district intended for edges of downtown or segments of commercial corridors, with neighborhood commercial district as a secondary choice, and downtown 1 as the last option. OR and NC still provide for tax revenue, but don't enable high-density development to further compromise South Adams. R1 historical neighborhood. I ask that you consider rezoning with attention and respect given for the neighboring community. Thank you for your time and attention. Mary Jackals. Oh.
Do you have further recommendations?
No, I guess I just wanted to, I think I kind of overkilled this
Right, no,
several
I-
times. So,
Right, that's what I was looking for, sorry.
yes, so we are recommending approval of the request to rezone the property from light industrial and public institutional to downtown and public institutional.
Tonight, you said it was a 2-acre lot, or 2-acre is what,
Yeah.
right, well, not when you're talking about the trail part, we can't use that part anyway.
Yep.
So now we're, D1 is 45 feet, and for the residential is 35, so are we talking a possible 3-story building? At 45
Generally,
feet?
for 45 feet, you're probably gonna go about 3.
It's 4, it would be too much for them, that's not. 4.
Right.
Right, so, okay,
Unless you kind of buried it. A little bit.
I don't think you're gonna be able to do that right next to it.
Probably not.
Okay. Okay,
So one of the points to make with height restrictions, however, 45 feet again, council can allow it to go higher with a conditional use permit, but I do want to point out that the Mason Street right of way, which is directly north,
Mhm.
is probably a little over 50 feet high. So, I mean, it's adjacent to the south, but when you're looking north along Adams, that if height is your issue, that there is visual already there, and I
whole thing. Oh,
did
gotcha.
want to point out, so this is the corner of Cass
Right.
and Adams, and so this is the, yes, this is the office space. So your height's gonna be at about this level somewhere over here.
Okay, and so there's no, I mean, we don't have an actual development, so we don't know about feasibility and all of that, and we kind of address that. Okay.
Correct, this would be a straight zone, so we have seen some conceptual plans in the past, and if those come forward, I think we would be more than happy to look at them, but it could be different. I mean, the owner, the property owner, current property owners could sell the property, develop themselves,
Right,
keep it forever in green space. I mean, it's private property, so.
Commissioner Bremer, you look like you have a question.
Yes, I do. I appreciate the decision to go with D1 rather than D2 because of the height restriction. I don't think I could support this otherwise. But I'm wondering, Dave, if you could say a little bit about the alternative zoning possibilities that Ms. Jekyll mentioned.
Sure, so the two she mentioned was neighborhood commercial
Mhm.
and office
Office
residential.
residential.
So the downtown, the office residential and the neighborhood commercial are all mixed use districts within the zoning code. So they're all very similar. There are some heavier restrictions on the OR and neighborhood commercial zonings. They also allow single family users. I believe with council approval. And they allow a little bit more of auto-oriented type uses because they're meant to be the fringes of in between the neighborhood and the downtown itself. Now those may be appropriate. I mean, we looked at some of those. But they are pretty restrictive as far as heights go, setbacks go, and some of the uses in there. In both of those districts are not. How would I say, as compatible as the downtown would be. And staff's opinion.
Thank you.
But they are all mixed use districts, and if that is something the commission would want us to look at more deeply. I mean, we could come back.
So I know it's a little bit outside of our scope in terms of rezoning, but I do think some of the comments around, just the trail in the park itself, I think holds some water. The lighting and maintenance, and also the site itself being in, I know they're trying to get grass established there, but it is pretty dusty at this point. What would the outlet be for anyone concerned about those things to, who should they be contacting at the city to voice those concerns?
Sure, if anybody's interested on the trail segment, so again, about 50 feet from assuming this gets approved and land gets divided. That you go straight to the city, you could either call inspection division or Parks Department directly. And anything on private property, I mean, you can always call the land ownership, that's usually the best policy. I know for years, Mr. Miller was out there every single day practically, and I could go out and talk to him. It's always seemed to be there, on a skid steer. But if you couldn't reach the property owners, you could always call the inspection division and they would send out basically a notice to correct any type of issue. So the really being an empty lot, the biggest things are going to be probably debris that might accumulate there or lawn grass if it's not.
Good enough.
Any further discussion amongst the commission?
These will be private property, right? Even the trail.
The trail would become public property, the city would purchase that. And it's almost a land swap because the city owns the stretch along Adams, which is the street frontage. The private property owner owns the riverfront, but has no street frontage. So it's kind of a swap. But the land along the river would be owned by the city and the rest would all be in private ownership.
According to the zoning.
Yep, and I will bring this
Just
up.
want to make sure.
Yep, so when you look, this is the preliminary certified survey map that would reconfigure the lots out there. So everything in this outlot would be city owned, and an outlot basically means it's not really developable for anything. You could put detention facilities and stuff like that in there, but really very few active uses, maybe passive. And then lot one, which is this piece, which is the 2 1/4 section, would be in private ownership.
Okay.
But again, once developed, you know, there's setbacks on that property and all that.
Okay, thank you. Motion to approve.
Second,
All right, so we have a motion by Commissioner Ravinsky and a second by Commissioner Bremer.
thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this item? All right, I'll go ahead with the voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that rezoning will go forward to city council for January 17th.
Correct, and I would make a comment on that as well. So they're both gonna go January 17th to the council. Because the comp plan has a 30-day wait period in between, we'll hold the zoning and they'll go together to the council in March. So, there's some council doesn't meet, they meet once, a couple times the next couple months, so we would hold the zone change. So they both go at the same time.
Together.
So, yep.
Okay. That makes sense. All right, thank you so much. Moving on to item number 10, which is a public hearing on the request to establish a planned unit development at 216 South Military Avenue to permit the development of multiple family residential use submitted by Gorman and Co. applicant Henry Real Estate Development LLC property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as we get into this right here, just want to give a bit of a longer background as to what we're gonna see here for the next 2 items. So we have 2 public hearings. They're both at 216 South Military. One is what you're seeing in front of you right here, that would be for an apartment request at the southwest corner of Leo and Military Avenue by Gorman. That's what this public hearing will be about right here. The second, or the rest of the block owned by Martin, is next slide. Will be the rest of the block, less the area where there's the apartment complex. So right now on this site, this commission happened to see a PUD back in October of 2021 for the site for a temporary PUD for this overall block. With this in mind, this along with the development agreement went through, was approved by council in November of 2021. With the intention of spurring on improvement and development along Military Avenue for the site. So what you're hearing right now in the public hearing is relating to what's at stake here for the apartment complex. Once that public hearing and action is done, there'll be a second public hearing for the rest of the block and what the uses are related to that.
So now we're just talking about the parking lot where the apartments gonna go.
So that one slide, we're talking about now, it's interconnected, so folks go ahead and talk about what it means for the rest of the block. We get that, but they are two separate items.
All right, thank you, Tom. Is there anyone wishing to speak on this item? Go ahead and say your name and address for the record, please.
Gary Pond, 1474 Finch Lane. I'm in favor of the PUD in affordable housing and responsible affordable housing. However, I think that this site is very dangerous for the young children because of its proximity to Military Avenue. They haven't, it would, God help us, if a kid playing who's a resident of that facility gets injured on a very high speed area. They have not provided any play space for the children of the residents. And that's my main concern.
Thank you so much. Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is closed. Moving on to the actionable item, item number 11. Consideration and possible action on request to establish a planned unit development at 216 South Military Avenue to permit the development of multiple family residential use submitted by Gorman and Co. applicant Henry Real Estate Development LLC property owner.
Thank you very much. So as we're discussing this, just to note, the applicant is in the audience virtually along with property owners are here for additional follow-up here. The request here is for a development of a 48-unit multifamily development on the site at a little over 1 acre. Next slide, please. Next slide. So what we're seeing right here is the CSM for what the entire overall block is. Lot 2 is what we are referring to right now. Lot 1 is the rest of the site. You can see the former Shopko building and the existing Superior Liquor Store over on the north part of the property. Next slide. So this right here is our comp plan. The area is slated for commercial use, and we have a mixture of uses right there. Next slide. That would be the zoning for the area. So right now we have our PUD in place where it's a C3 zoning, but it has a PUD to allow for limited light industrial uses on the overall block with the intention of creating new developments. Next slide. So with this in mind, seeing some images as far as what the developers looking to go ahead and put forth here. The comprehensive plan, so it's kind of a mixed bag as to what it means with it right here. It's not fully consistent with the comprehensive plan because that's so the whole block of commercial. But there are parts of the comp plan where it is consistent. It comes into play here with the comp plan encouraging the restoration of underutilized urban properties to be viable commercial, residential, and or recreational opportunities. Additionally, Military Avenue has been identified for a target area for increased transit-oriented development and supportive zoning. Supportive zoning encourages the use of mixed and multiple uses on the property and encourages buildings to be located near the front of the property near the sidewalk and have the parking be in the rear of the property. Bring the people up to the street itself, not have these vast parking lots that we've had here for 60 years on this property that might get used one day a year or be snow storage. So with this in mind, back in the 2021, call was put out there, go ahead and find development for this area. In the developers agreement, that was reached between, Martin and the city, the call was put out to find either commercial, mixed use or residential uses in this area itself. And that stemmed this, this proposal here, from Gorman. In total, it's a 4-story building, 48 units. The first floor is mainly residential space. There is some common space for the tenants. There's also some office space for Lutheran Family Services. In the back of the property, next slide, please. This is the corner elevation here, looking from military southbound. Next slide. You'll see some of the parking that's in the back of the property itself to go ahead and service the tenants on the site. So with this PUD, what's in mind, there'd be some requests to go ahead and deviate from C3 zoning. Within C3 zoning, residential is allowed, but what is different right here is it does not have a full first floor commercial that is required. So this would be a difference. Additionally, there are a number of setback issues with getting the building close towards the road itself to go ahead and make this work that was identified in the staff report. As well as some impervious search requirements and max building height. Going back to our Mason military, this is a 4-story building, so the requirement for this be up to allow this to be a 50-story or sorry, a 50-foot building rather than 35, which is the requirement here for C3. So this has gone through a long process here to get to the point that we're at. You may have recalled that this was initially in front of you back in November as a potential item, but it was pulled by the applicant at that time. When that happened, there was a second PUD for the larger block in general that was put forth as well. With this in mind, there was conversations back and forth between both developers, both Gorman and Martin and the city. And there was a neighborhood meeting at that time later on in December, which about 7 people or so attended, as well as Alderac and Leah Wecker from the Military Avenue bid. There were some mixed inputs as far as this goes, some reservations and questions, such as what was put out just now as far as play space for the property. While reviewing that, we did look into what does this area right here represent, what public amenities are nearby. So 1 block to the north of Shawano, we do have Murphy Park. That's less than 1,000 feet away. Additionally, to both the west and the east sides, you have Badger Park and Chapel School / Park, both about 1/4 to a half mile away. With this in mind, we found it to be sufficient space for residents to go ahead and utilize public green spaces for the property. We understand and acknowledge what they're saying there, with green space, but limited property on this, or limited space in this property does inhibit areas for green space. So moving on, please, Dave. A few more images here of the property that have been proposed. These are some of the materials that have been proposed by the applicant. As noted in the PUD itself, they have pretty thorough plans here as far as what the site plan and different building plans for the site. Next, this is their proposed site plan itself. It will need to still go through a typical site plan review, so long as it stays within the general spirits of what is being proposed here. We don't see any issues with this. One thing we do note that we are proposing to stick to is with it being 48 units, you need to have in part of our code 48 stall parking stalls plus 1 stall per 4 units. That equals 60 parking stalls minimum requirement. To go ahead and make that happen. Ways around that would be to potentially change up the parking a little bit somewhat to go ahead and make the parking work. That may be an issue though. There's also shared parking which could be allowed within 1,000 feet of the property, as long as there can be an agreement that would be recorded between property owners to allow for additional parking. If those are met, we can go ahead and approve the site plan at that time. But right now, they're not quite meeting it, but there is time to go ahead and work it out between the property owners. Next slide, please. This is just some images of the different floor plans for individual floors as far as where units are and where different public spaces are in the building. Image. So this is a bit different from our staff report. Our recommendation, so we've been talking here with the property owner, both developers here for both PUDs here since November, December, and this month to get to where we're at right now. With this in mind, we sent out the PUD for review to the applicants back in the last week of December. We've been talking for the past week to get to where we need to go to. We are recommending tabling both this PUD request and the following one for the Martin block until the January 23rd Plan Commission to allow Gorman, Martin, and the city to have more time to address issues put forth today, primarily to the next item that's going to come into play, not so much this one, and to work on an amended developers agreement, which, while that's an RDA and council agreements, what's needed set in there, what is happening in their existing developers agreement should be looked at and reviewed to change up to what is being put forth right now. With that, the additional 2 weeks would give some time to go ahead and make some changes to go ahead and try to tie this up to where all parties would be in agreement. Not so much this one, but to our next item, but they're both intertwined.
All right, so we're looking to table items 11, 12, and 13 eventually. No, we're on 11, obviously.
Yeah.
All right, as I was preparing for the meeting, I looked at these plans and I was super excited. Very excited, I love the look of it, though I'm trying to put myself in the mind that if this was up right now, this would be like the only. Is it the only in that area? It just seemed.
Well, there's a lot, right, like literally a block behind military to the west. There are tons of apartments, actually to the east, too. I think about Western Avenue is right there.
Right.
But even like Janus, which is right behind by 9th, like all,
Yeah,
there's a lot of apartments over there.
But I love the look of the building. I would say when I first saw it, I didn't see any play space or park space, but now I know there are a lot of parks around it, but this looks great for that area. I think it's gonna stand out. I don't know if it's gonna stand out in a good or a bad way, because it will be the best looking thing in that area, quite honestly.
Catalyst.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it looks great though. Just, I think it'll be out of place.
We need to say, if
Would-
we're tabling this,
Table.
yeah, if we're tabling this, we don't necessarily need to discuss any further.
Staff recommendation.
You can say that before.
Yeah, the floor is,
I like
oh, go ahead, Neil. I'm sorry. No, Neil. Come on now.
I didn't, I snuck in late, so I haven't hopped up the
Yeah.
tape, so I apologize.
Alright.
Just Neil Sexual, Development Director, folks don't know who I am. Just want to add on to what John has said. Obviously, folks would probably remember this process from a little over, and these uses would not traditionally be allowed in a C3 zoning area. There was concerns over allowing them. However, we, certainly coming off of some of the discussions we've had on East Town Mall with the retail front and things, kind of screening the industrial use on back. While that's the same building project, in that case, this would be two separate buildings, but we feel that the premise is essentially the same. That if it can be done in a manner that's attractive and still works well, that we could still utilize those kind of more traditional commercial residential mixed use uses to allow, again, it's a very limited kind of dipping our toe into the light industrial uses with identifying the very specific aspects that are in there. The applicants have been very communicative, and we have good progress being made on doing these. Have had Alder Weary did send a note this afternoon, actually wanting to see if we could do some more things about the architecture. He'd like to see a little bit more, some more glaze, some other things, maybe take a look and make it, try to raise that a little bit. And part of the effort we're looking at in doing that, certainly for this particular project, would be looking at some design, maybe adding some design standards for the overall site in general. But maybe some of them may certainly be applicable specifically to this site. So what staff has done to this point is they have kind of the three key areas that they're really looking at. Now we're looking at kind of at least identifying minimum standards
design standards for the entire area. That would essentially kind of be a little cleaner and a little bit straight on that. So again, we feel that this is a good time. We're very good cooperation. We're very appreciative of the efforts that both developers have put in to date. And we do think that this has got excellent potential to kind of hopefully be something that we can lean on and utilize for reviewing other projects in other large format areas going forward. But there have been some concerns over the large format use. It's in general and what's long. And I did want to also just provide a real quick statement. I did, Mr. Mackham did provide a quick, come on, man, we're gonna find where it's at here. Quick information regarding what the actual rents would be if someone had that question coming up here. Let me see if I
I
can
was
bring
gonna
it.
ask that, like, what's the affordability?
Yeah.
Come on.
Let me see. It's actually, yeah, let me see. It's, you know, some people would say affordable units would probably say they're not affordable enough, and other folks would maybe say they're other there. It is kind of a market in here. So here's just examples, obviously, because it is tied to number of bedrooms. There's multiple factors that kind of set that, but he did say, so for an individual renting a 1-bedroom unit, the $38,000 a year would be the qualifying income, and that rent would be $870 per month. Just for that one. For a family of 4, the income limit would be $55,000 per year, for at $1,200 a month for a 3-bedroom unit. So at least gives folks some, I think, some real life, those are more of an average. I think what the rents would be, they certainly could go up or down from that. But I think that question does come up, and certainly concerns over the term affordable. So we try to get finding some more realistic numbers on what those are. So just with that, just wanted to add that context for everybody in terms of, I know we've been going back and forth on it. It's been before you a couple times. We think this next delay is that will help us kind of really get this to, like I said, folks, I think the key aspect of this that we had not done before is kind of the combination of the development agreement and the PUD to kind of govern and guide the schedule of how those things get implemented. Again, working with the Martins, this has been a unique process, but we think it's right now we're very pleased with how the direction's going. We think this could hopefully be something we can build on going forward. So with that, certainly available to answer any questions. So
Thank you so much, Neil.
thanks.
Well, this is,
Michael.
oh, go ahead. Wait. Commissioner Braddock.
Thanks. I think there's a lot of good momentum around this. I mean, there's a lot of cooperation. It sounds like I'm all for adding affordable housing. However, I have to just say, I'm really hesitant about this. I live near the area itself. I get through there oftentimes. I share the concerns about getting to the space. I'm glad there's parks nearby, and I know that, but in order to get to those parks, you're crossing through a very residential area, very commercial area, excuse me, lots of traffic, lots of busy traffic. It's not just walking down the street in a neighborhood block to get to the park. I mean, this is crossing through a pretty active area of the community. I'm concerned for the quality of life. The green space around it, the look of the building does not fit the architecture of the general area itself, at least from my experience of it. I think it's interesting, it looks nice as a building, as a concept, just does not look to blend into that area of our community. So I have a lot of hesitancy around it. I think I share a lot of the concerns that were brought up about the safety issues, the family life there, especially because we'll be having the parking lot right directly surrounding it, of course, as is discussed. But there's a lot of hesitancy, and I think that I'm all for affordable housing, just in the right location in our community. This to me just does not seem like a viable location for a good quality of life for the residents who'd be living in that location. So I have my hesitancy toward it, and just wanted to state that.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Commissioner Bremer.
I want to support what Commissioner Bedard just said. My concern would be with having some, it needn't be large, but some fenced in space for particularly very young children who could not manage to get across Leo Street and on in order to get to Perkins Park. Other than that, I'm very pleased with this architecture, and I have to say, for the most part, I've not been thrilled with the architecture of the recent years in the city, but this one does please me.
I did, yeah.
Okay. Please grab a motion.
He has a motion?
Yeah, motion to table.
Table it, okay.
Have first staff recommendation.
Will we have
Second,
public hearing again?
I'd probably have to read through the next items as well, just because we didn't strike them
So
from,
we do have a public hearing here coming up for the
Right,
next item.
right.
So that's a public hearing as well.
and that was a
at the
posted
moment.
public hearing, so we'll have to still continue with that.
Yes.
Okay, all right, so we'll have the next public hearing as well. Okay.
Okay.
So wait,
You didn't get a second, did you?
I did not get a
Oh,
second.
second.
oh, okay.
actually, I seconded the tabling motion.
Okay,
Can we table them separately?
we're gonna have to because
Yes,
they're all on the agenda, so. All right, so a motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, a second by Commissioner Bremer to table item 11 until
January 23rd.
January. All right,
Correct.
okay. All right, all those in favor,
Aye.
Aye.
any opposed? All right. And then that will be tabled till January 23rd. And then moving on to the public hearing on item number 12, public hearing request to amend the planned unit development at 216 South Military Avenue, amending the boundaries of the PUD submitted by Mao and Associates applicant on behalf of Henry Real Estate Development LLC property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what you're seeing here is for the remainder of the block. So what you see here with this map would be Garden Beauty is in the blue. The rest of it, both in the yellow and green, is the rest of the block, and that's where the language of the PUD and the uses come into play. We'll get into some more detail here when we get done with the public hearing itself, but what comes into play here with this is what is the role? This is a C3 area with some additional light industrial uses added to potential permitted uses on the site, along then with different standards for development for the site when it comes to improvements in the different development areas.
Okay, all right, thank you, John. So the public hearing, we're looking to hear from anyone who would like to speak in favor, in opposition, or to provide comments only. State your name and address for the record.
Hi, Leah Waker with Military Avenue, 425 South Military. I'm confused whether I should comment now or wait for the other public hearing. I assume there will still be another public hearing when we get more information. Literally, this has been a changing project by the day. I did go to the hearing on the 22nd of December in a blizzard with 6 other people. So I just feel like I can't give you all the comments I'm going to give you now because it literally does change by the day. I would like to see that we can do some warehouse on the back side of that property. I'm not interested in seeing warehouse zone on the military side of the property. The housing, I think if you look at what Ashwaubenon's doing, there's balconies, there's green space, there's climbing walls. Very similar developments is what we have here. There's really no amenities for a person to want to live here. I'd like to see more of that. I'm not opposed to the housing. I'm very supportive of the housing, actually. I just would like to have it have more amenities that we would draw a great neighborhood group to be there. I do think the green space is a huge issue. Those parks are not close by, not at all. You have to walk quite a ways. The two developments in Ashwaubenon that are going on that are very similar and similar in size have courtyards, they have grills. Where would these families even grill out? There's literally zero space. That's, again, we talk about quality of life. We're not giving them a very good quality of life for being in housing. So I'll hold some of my comments till the next public hearing, which I assume we'll have.
Well, yeah, so just to note, these are the public hearings right here.
These are the public hearings for these items.
This will go on to January 23rd. There is the option of the chair to go ahead and open the floor, back open to comments. Which is pretty standard thing. People are here to go ahead and note, so.
That hardly warrants for having another public hearing.
I think that's legal though, right? We can't post another public hearing that quick or. I believe.
Yeah, with the public hearing timing, it would push it back pretty far. So there's two items. One is the comp plan amendment, and the second,
It's PUD and PUD.
well, this is just PUD. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so there wouldn't be another public hearing itself, however. Maybe you can get the commission to commit to opening the floor when it comes to for action items on the 23rd. And then I find great success with just asking the alders to open it up for public comment and discussion. Alternatively, I mean, the commission could hold another public hearing, but it's going to push it back well into February or March because of the statutes on notice.
Right, so it's not particularly atypical that you have a public hearing and if the item gets tabled, that a secondary hearing then after that. By a commission that it gets opened, and that's typically what happens here with other PDs that have not, they'll get fully recognized at their first meeting and hearing.
So it's hard to comment on the unknown,
Well,
isn't
you know,
it?
well, you can always comment on the actionable items,
On the way.
on the actionable items from the floor themselves,
Okay. Oh, I see. Okay, as opposed to
as opposed to public.
public hearing.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I can appreciate that.
And the beauty with the comments on the actionable items, it's going to be a back and
Answers.
forth. For the public hearing, it's just you
We're not supposed to be doing
making
that.
statements.
Oh. True. Okay, got it. I was confused though. Thank you for clarifying.
Right.
So I still will have time to comment on the project. Okay,
Right.
I appreciate it.
Well, and I'm
Yeah,
sure with
'cause I-
being
and
part
I
of the bid
think-
board too, I'm sure that you probably also.
Yeah, I do think we're inching our way to a good solution where we can meet everyone's needs. So, thank you.
Thank you, Nat. Here's the public hearing, right? All right. Is there anyone else wishing? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Is there anyone wishing to speak? Let the record reflect that no one came forward and this public hearing is now closed. Moving on to the corresponding actionable item, item number 13. Consideration with possible action on request to amend a planned unit development at 216 South Military Avenue to amend the boundaries of the PUD submitted by Mount Associates applicant on behalf of Henry Real Estate Development LLC property owner.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is where the bit of the needing some time here to go ahead and get this finely tuned here over the course of the next 2 weeks. It comes into play. So you'll note that we had called development areas A, B, and C. Part of why we had those areas designated because as of now, we don't have the best of long-term plans as far as what it means for design standards on the property right now to go ahead and separate your spaces between commercial and potential light industrial uses. And so that's where some talks back and forth, both Martin and Gorman, that it could be beneficial. To note, as far as the uses, this is still a C3 zone, then would allow for light industrial in certain parts. Right now, we're saying we're working out where it means within A, B, and C. But those uses, just to go ahead and note, would be limited production and processing, a contractor yard, but it must be fully enclosed within the building. I'll just backtrack. These are all different uses that are allowed right now within light industrial. And as a staff, we look back at these at some of the uses. Some we just immediately said, no, does not make sense with the surrounding residential and commercial. Others we think this could go ahead and work. But additional uses would be dry cleaning establishment / commercial laundry, research and development facility, public safety / service facility, general office, government office, bank, clinic, healthcare facility, artist studio, and warehousing accessory to primary business. That does not mean self-storage warehousing. That's a prohibited use. So we're talking people doing their self-storage. That's one of the notes we have. We also had some permitted uses that would be conditional. So we go back to this board and the common council, they want to do it. That'd be a material recovery facility minor. We're talking like electronics, computers, TVs, things of that sort. There's a major one that was a no. ground transportation service, package delivery service, telecommunication tower, wireless communication facility. And then some other ones that are also conditional in C3, which would be dwelling in conjunction with the business and live working in. So we've looked at the uses, we took the LI uses, we constricted them to what we thought could work better when it's being designed well enough to go ahead and put that industrial more towards the center and back of the block and have proper industrial buffering to the commercial residents.
And make a motion to table the item for staff recommendation.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ravinsky, second by Commissioner Craddock to table the item until January 23rd. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead with the voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, and then that will be tabled until the next meeting. And moving on to informational director's report, Mr. Sexual.
That's me.
In person.
Exactly, yeah, nice to see everybody, exactly. I don't recognize you guys without the boxes around. That's right. Yeah, I wish I was kind of in that room crying last night, all the Lombardi ghosts on where were they last night? They didn't, but yeah, we'll not go there, exactly. Just a couple quick updates. Staff continues to work on our comprehensive plan RFP. So on top of everything else I've got David doing, he's working on that for me right now as well. So hopefully gonna have that together and hopefully have something to kind of just share with the commission here, next meeting or two. I'd like to have something to kind of just get your feedback on before it's actually ready for prime time. But obviously, as you noted, Madam Chair, it's an old document. It needs some DLC. And get some newer issues we need to address, and we're looking forward to really getting that going. Just want to give a brief update also on, we've contracted with Grafe for redevelopment of the JBS site. If folks remember, we kind of brought that forward to kind of generate some public engagement and then to do 3 redevelopment concepts, kind of finalizing into one recommended concept to kind of help proceed with that. We've had our initial kickoff meeting internally with staff on that meeting. So we're working on kind of finalizing the project schedule a little bit right now. I think they're looking at about a 6-month process. We kind of want to speed that up a little bit since we've been kind of messing around with this for about a year and a half, 2 years now. So we kind of want to get that moving. But we're excited that process is underway. If folks remember, the 3 components of that project will be hopefully some creative housing solutions for that site, as well as a destination park facility, and then kind of an urban agriculture component somehow worked in to that overall project. So we're excited to get that going. This is one we've received a considerable amount of state funding to assist with. And we're just looking forward to kind of seeing what folks can come up with. Obviously, the outreach for that neighborhood has been the more challenging in the past for us for a variety of reasons. So we actually intentionally really selected Grafe and their sub-consultant firm by the name of Muse that specializes actually in a little bit more outreach. We actually have their actual urban designer actually speaks Spanish. So there actually won't be a translation from designer to someone translate it. They can actually have an ongoing conversation with some of the folks in that neighborhood, which we're really excited about. We think it seems like we should be doing this on all of our projects a little bit, but it's now we actually have a tool in place to really actually do that. So we'll have a trained actual development urban design professional who can actually speak the language of the residents in the area. We can really kind of go back and forth with that. So we are excited about that moving forward. Working on the housing report required for the end of year, which is, if David didn't have any hair, he definitely had hair like this after he got done working on it. It's a statutory requirement that we have to do every year that kind of analyzes what the housing market has done every year in terms of how much space we have available, how much was zoned, how much is planned for, and a variety of other factors that is not the easiest thing to kind of grab and pull together. So that's usually due once a year. So Dave is working on that as well. And obviously we're still working on continuing to try to keep a lot of our projects that are in the pipeline are certainly experiencing financial difficulties, things, and trying to keep them alive. So Mr. Ravinsky is certainly aware of that problem for sure. So we have multiple requests for financial assistance that we're evaluating and looking at as we go forward, but really want to try doing our best to try to keep a lot of those projects moving forward. As of right now, we aren't seeing anything really falling by the wayside, but we are seeing a couple of delays and a couple of folks trying to kind of reshuffle their capital stack to afford their projects. So maybe a short-term tapping of the brakes, but we're hopeful that things improve and we can find some resources to keep everything moving forward as planned. So, and with that, available for any questions. Anyone has any?
Just to follow up on that, I have wrote down two things. Monroe project, is that probably one of the?
That is one, actually, that one we're working forward on, brief update on that one, figuring out how to proceed on their environmental work on that site. So they're actually in conversations with their environmental consultant and the city in terms of how to address that and get that moving forward. We think that's pretty straightforward in terms of what we're going to need to do. Funding that is going to be the challenge. They're actually working with, even though it's a market rate project, HUD actually does provide financing for market rate projects as well. So they're actually working through a federal program to try and get the environmental work and the overall construction project all financed in one shot. Which we had very positive conversations when I think the mayor is actually joining a call with HUD next week with the developer on that project to try to get that financing squared away. So.
Okay, thank you. And then, I could have swore, and maybe this is me, that the Green Bay Press Gazette building.
It's like a game store and.
I thought it was supposed to be something, but I have seen the game store.
Right now, there are temporary, at least interim tenants in the building using the space. I think there's still some redevelopment potential being considered for that space, but I think for at least for the short term, the current owner has leases in there for at least there's game shop.
The game shop and something else.
That's right.
They moved to Alloway Coin, they tore that building down in Alloway and moved them to Green Bay.
Yeah. So it's an interesting combination of uses in that space. But it's a great corner. It's certainly a highly visible one, and they seem to be doing okay business wise. So I think my assumption would that at least those would probably be more short-term uses until the developer figures out exactly what they can maybe do, either to sell for a larger tenant in the building or redevelop the space.
And then my last question, what is going on with the transmission repair?
See, they were the ones that were supposed to go in the Press Gazette building.
That's what I thought.
Oh, it was that one?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll look at staff. I have not heard anything on that one in several months. So I don't know if the project just kind of fell through or what
I
happened.
believe they had some logistical issues with traffic movements.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think it's gonna be coming forward, but I'm not 100% positive. I don't think they'll come back. But they had some pretty large issues. Trying to maneuver, vehicles to be repaired in a forward motion.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I just remember many hours.
Yeah.
It was a while ago. That was almost
Pre-pandemic.
that was pre-Popeyes.
There we go. There we go.
West side or east side? Come on now. All right.
Great.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Neil. Date of the next meeting is January 23rd, 2023. All right, motion by Commissioner Vinsky, second by Vice Chair Miller to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.